everyone, and we are finally on stage. Took a little longer than expected, so hopefully you enjoyed the short break and grabbed a drink in the meantime. I welcome you to the hour 13 already, so we are already more than half of it behind us. And I am glad that I can introduce a really, really great speaker from the Firefox team today. So in this case, it's not a local community, but more kind of a global community, because you see people from Firefox all around the globe. Some are even here in Austria, of that I know. But Emanuela, you're based in Berlin, as far as I know. And I just quickly introduce some of the functionality to our audience, and then I hand over to your session. By the way, Nico is also here from Graz, supporting me in this host session, and he's here for the technical stuff in the background, hanging around. So for anyone who's on this session, you can turn on the captions below. I hope they are working, because in some sessions they did not work properly. It's like the small CC that you see in the bottom of the screen. Also, feel free to share emojis during the talk if you're really happy or loving on some points. And go to the chat. If you have questions, drop them on the Q&A. It's on the top, I think, no, this one. Hope I'm pointing in the right direction. Somewhere on the side here. And if you have low bandwidth, it's no problem. You can turn on the bottom right to low bandwidth, to light mode, I think it's called, where some functionalities are really disappearing, or to audio only. So it's not much of an issue if you are on low bandwidth. You can still join us here on stage. And that's it from my side. So I hand over now to Emanuela. You can start your screen share and introduce yourself again by yourself. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Johannes. And thank you, everyone. As always, like this is a remote conference, I'm going to ask, just let me know in the chat. Can you see my slides? Give me a thumbs up. I hope so. Yes, thank you so much. So we are here all together, hour 13. And, I'm imagining that somehow this is a moment for us, like a conference where we share stories. And we all know that stories are magic. They can create other words, emotion, ideas, and they make the everyday seems incredible. Stories can also teach us empathy and take us on a terrific journeys. They make us laugh, cry, jump with fright, and then comfort us with a happy ending. And for me, I have really learned a lot from communities during my career. So conference is the best place to share short stories about the way that we work and what it worked, the things that didn't work so well. And so today, me and my colleagues that are in kind of virtual mode in my talk are going to share with you how in 2020 we find our fire. But before, let me introduce myself. I am Emanuela Damiani. As Johannes said, I'm based in Berlin, where I'm also one of the founder member of the Ladies.ux community. And for me, community is really important. It's a great way to get together. So I'm really, again, excited to be here. I am working as a UX manager for Firefox browser. And this is actually a kind of new position for me. So it's the first time that I'm introducing myself with this title to the big audience. It's exciting. And I've been in the industry for the past 10 years. I'm passionate about process and, most importantly, people. As you may notice, it's just me today. It was supposed to be a talk together with my colleague Aaron, but unfortunately he's unable to join. But believe me, he's going to be very present in this presentation. Together, virtually with me, there are Ryan and Victoria. I'm seeing that Victoria is also in the chat. So hi, Victoria, and Meridel. You're going to meet them in a bit. But let me introduce first quickly the Firefox UX team. The Firefox UX team cover different functions. We have product designers, both on desktop and mobile side. We have content designers. We have designers that are really system thinker and are working most importantly on the design system. We have, of course, user researcher, both qualitative, quantitative, and now we are also looking for a market researcher. And we are evolving our team and looking into design operations. It's a really exciting team. We are really covering the full spectrum of the UX discipline. And something that makes, from my point of view at least, the UX team really special is that we are a distributed team by design. It's not something that happened during the health crisis last year. It's something that was always in this way. And we are in a lot of places. We're in Berlin, like me, Toronto, Chicago, Austin, Denver, and many more cities. This also means that for us, working remotely wasn't something new. It's something that we embrace and something that we deal with that. Of course, last year was challenging for all of us, but it's 2021. And in case you're wondering, Johannes already mentioned that we are hiring and we have a virtual booth. So if you want to learn more about the position that we have open, just stop by and say hi. We are in particularly looking for a new team member with visual design skill, but also content skills that can come and join with us. So we already have mentioned this kind of big topic, 2020. What happened back in 2020? Oh God, a lot of things happened. We all know that. Personally, I was a designer in the design system team, and that gave me a privileged point of view to observe things that weren't really working. As I said earlier, we are a distributed team, so we were maybe better suited for some of the change that the global pandemic brought in. However, no design organization is perfect, and we found ourselves facing different problems. And my unique point of view kind of allowed me to identify some of those problems that I also then discussed with the rest of the team, which were work was happening a lot in isolation. And it was hard for anyone who wasn't the lead designer on a project to contribute on the production files. And our process and design language was getting diluted. Our last big redesign and push into a strong design language was it happened 5 years early. So it wasn't easy for people working on design system to help because they were already diverging and we were going in a lot of different direction. And yes, there was this sort of feeling that we were all by ourselves and all alone. And I'm going to, as many other team, we were also facing a dilemma, the looking for the perfect design tool match. And I'm going to ask Johannes to play a short clip for all of us. The one with the funny name.
Te amo, my beautiful Figma Maria. I love you too, Pabloso. Your auto layout is so caliente. I love it when you touch me with your mouse. Pabloso Alberto! Sketcha Fernanda! You're cheating on me with this cualquiera. It's not what you think. Pabloso, you said I was your only design app.
Will Pabloso confess his love? Will Sketcha Fernanda win Pabloso's heart? Will Figma Maria become the only one? Stay tuned for your favorite telenovela, Diseño Salva.
So, if you don't know Pablo, Stanley is a really great just design advocate, and he made this really funny video that resonated a lot with the community back in January when he did it, because really we were working back then with Sketch and InVision, and suddenly we got, Figma coming into us, like, look how fancy I am, look all the things that we can do. And this seems really like attractive. And with the design system team, we decided, yes, we are going to transition from Sketch plus InVision to Figma. This thing was about to happen. We are starting to migrate, while meanwhile, also the organization was changing. And this was how Firefox looks like. And maybe if you didn't update your Firefox recently, it still looks like this for you. We had a new direction coming from our product team and from our leadership team. Our operating vision was calling us to visualize this fresh take on the internet and on the tools we use to harness the web. And this was really like a great call and a great opportunity. However, as you may imagine, it was 2021. We were transitioning. It really took us a while, few days to say, like, okay, don't panic. This is something that we can do. This is something that we're going to try to do it, and we're going to, find our fire back. And like my good colleague Aaron loves to say, the browser is an operating system. It comes with a lot of level of complexity that is kind of easy to miss at first. We have so many different components, such as modal dialog, system message, product notification, context menu. Like, you have no idea how much thinking there is behind a context menu. Components styling for buttons and fields, where you need to find the harmony. And back then, they weren't really in harmony to each other. So as a good, mighty, and resilient team full of great people, we decided that let's build our home. We found ourselves, as I say, transitioning to a new tool. In the sad moment, we were tasked with our bigger refreshing years. It was a big ask. It was an exciting project, but we were like in the middle of this transition. And like my colleague and former manager, Michelle, told me, like, Figma allows us to have many conversations about the way that we work. What is the starting point? When is the input and feedback helpful and supportive? What are the rituals that we can honor or create to build trust and strength in our collaboration? But most importantly, before we even start, and before I even start telling you the story about the way that we then ended up finding our style, I would like to remind all of you that tools don't give you a process. You don't need to have the tool dictating the way that you work in. It's your team that needs to find a groove, that needs to go through those, moments that are uncomfortable, where you can then refine again each other and say, like, okay, this is the right things to do in this point in time. And we also add this extra complexity, right? Because in normal times, we will have OLANs, which is our usually bi-yearly meeting, where we meet everyone from Mozilla, and we will be together. And because this project was really important, we will most likely having been like work weeks. So we will have found in times pre-COVID opportunity to physically share a space and work through those things together, even if it's just 1 week. That's, of course, important time for us to bond as human beings, but also moments where you can just solve problem quickly because you're all in the same room. As Aaron said in this quote, we were robbed by this opportunity, and this kind of feels a bit harder. So I want to recognize that we are like in really odd condition, or whether we start quickly realizing that Figma was giving us something that in the past Sketch, InVision, and other tools didn't give us. They was giving us the opportunity to stay, even if it's just virtually, all in the same room. We were all in the same file together, and we were ready to build our foundation. So what do I mean for foundation? For foundation, I'm not only meaning the colors or the individual components, which, by the way, there were a lot, but I'm really meaning building the foundation of our product while in parallel building the foundation of our way to use Figma, and somehow, without even being maybe 100% aware, rethinking our design culture and rethinking the way that we collaborate closely with each other. There was a lot of learning by doing. And I think that learning by doing is a great value that you can bring into a discussion. It's something that you allow people to, make mistake. But at the same time, if this was like any other project, we will have more time to explore or even set parallel streams of work, one maybe with the old process and one with this new hybrid process. But this time, we had no choice. We had to learn how to swim. And this clip that you can see here in the background is really a real video without audio, a clip that I shared with the team on January 15. We had found different way to work with each other and to learn how to share what we were doing. Remember, we were learning Figma at the same time that we were shipping this new exciting project. And Figma as a tool is pretty freaking cool. As soon as we start working, we realized that allow us to give us things that other didn't, like the cross-player, and also just this feeling of inviting people in our room. For me, Figma really allow us to build our house. And instead of having everybody working in some corner and maybe share it only down the line, allow people to cross-pollinate more, but more about that. And I would say, at the same time, Figma was evolving. When we were working on the first version of Button, because, everybody starts always with Button. We were just building components the normal way, looking for different guidelines. And then 3 weeks later, bam, we have variants. We had this really new, exciting thing. And you know what? Yeah, it was hard, but it was exciting and still exciting to see a product and work with a product that evolved with you, and also having you evolving with the product. Again, remembering that you are the one who's setting your process, is not the tool. And another lesson that definitely allow us another learning is definitely always to remember that your action needs to fit the purpose, but also fit in the context. So we have multiple purposes there because it's kind of rare, right? It would be a lie to say that people only have one goal, one purpose. And this time we have multiple one. One was kind of rebuilding our design language. Maybe a soft goal was also refinding our own design culture. And another goal in the end, really high-level goal from our whole company, was to ship this new exciting experience, this task to reinvigorate and take this new, fresh opportunity to Firefox. And that was our context, right? And what is the thing that they say in tech? Build fast, break things. I got a convention to make. Sometimes it's really hard for me to let it go. And I want things to be built right at first. But what right even means? Sometimes not having things done right at the beginning is for the best, because it allows us to maybe fit better on one of our purposes. So in order to meet our deadline, we were working on more or less bi-weekly sprint basis, so 2 week sprint basis. And sometimes we had to take shortcuts, like in this case for the dark theme components. While for the light theme, we were having all our components, what we call it like basic components. So it means like input field, buttons, radio, all those basic that then allow you to grow and putting together, make you like more complex component. And when you take more complex component together, you make really complex and interfaces. So really exciting things. The one for the light theme, they were more or less defined. But for the dark theme, we found ourselves to rush. And unfortunately, the quickest way to meet our goal at the time, which was being able to keep the communication going and keep also like our stakeholders and engineering friends in the loop, this time was to break all the components and just basically hack them. And I have to say that that's something that it took me, like, those are the things that as a team, you need to have really strong value and you need to be able to share those things to each other, but also say, yeah, I understand this is a trade-off, because there are no solution. Like there's always like a trade-off. In our case, in this case, was to build something maybe a bit broken, but because we were aware of it, we were able to fix it down the way. And we wanted to be sure to also not compromise our strong value. So while we were working on Figma, we really found some incredible plugins that allow us to work more with accessibility. And also we start to tweak them to be sure that those plugins, again, they were not dictating the way that we were working, but were allowing us the way they were allowing us to be really a part of a conversation. And like here, like something that I'm really proud is like how we try to combine different icons and shape to also come and be more accessible to people with color blindness. Like it was something really small. So yes, go fast, break things, or understand that there are always trade-off, but not compromise your core value. And accessibility should be every designer core value. And again, this is just like a bit recap of what did I mean with foundation. This was a lot of learning by doing, using our vision and goals to understand what are the trade-offs, not compromising accessibility and value, and start inviting people in our new home that was Figma. So we were having conversation with stakeholders directly in Figma. We were inviting people, but honestly, not just like external, even internally. Probably people that are already here in the chat, they can tell you how many times and how many conversations we had over Zoom, but all together in Figma. This is really, really exciting. And because all the things happen, with a welcome, I would really like you to see and understand the experience of my colleague, Ryan, Victoria, and Julian. So if we can please play the video.
Hi, I'm Victoria Wang.
Hi, I'm Ryan Casey.
We are Firefox UX designers, and we're going to share how we applied this process to redesigning the onboarding experience. For the new user onboarding, what we previously had was very simple and straightforward. It worked well for its purpose, but the PMs came to us and asked, can we do more with this? Maybe can we try to emotionally connect with our users a little more, be more inviting, highlight the feel of the new release, and get everyone excited about it. So Ryan, Julian, and I got started in a Figma file that we called the playground file, where anything goes. We just experimented with all kinds of things: photographs, vector illustrations, bold gradients, really big text, or just like a mix of all those things.
Yeah, and I think what was cool about this was really seeing each other's work in real time and being able to remix and get new ideas and take other pieces and parts and get even more ideas and really just truly treat it as a playground with no limitations.
It was also a place where we could invite our PMs into the process. Our PM, Anna, helped us by making revisions of her own and guiding us and making comments on what we were working on. At one point, we found out we were running out of time. And so we tried to consolidate and bring it down to a very reasonable option that we knew we could ship. The noodle design is what we call this because it's the brand element that's consistent with our marketing. And we could have these noodles slightly moving around and just feel engaging. We almost went with this version, but our product leadership looked at the options again. They challenged us to go for the so-called impossible option, which required a new photo to replace this photo, which was just a stock photo. So we would need to recruit real Firefox fans. And the idea is that this could be part of a longer marketing campaign that could use a lot of different profiles of fans to kind of showcase the human nature of Firefox.
Yeah, we really just wanted to celebrate our Firefox users by putting them in the product and having them be the welcome for new users and kind of make that human connection.
We worked hard with marketing to polish this idea. They went and recruited some awesome people, including Soraya, who is seen here in her metal shop working on furniture. And that's the result that we went with. Her photo here really taps into the indie spirit that Firefox has.
We really kind of followed the same process for another user flow, our existing user onboarding. We had previously had a version for existing users when they upgraded Firefox that was pretty straightforward and worked for what it needed to accomplish. Basically, just having a little modal pop up saying, congrats, you've upgraded, and maybe a related product call out or something of that nature to kind of highlight some other products within the Firefox suite. So what we really wanted to do was to create a new user experience to really highlight a major release like the one we just did. And we followed, again, that same process of a playground. So this is just one example of many, many iterations of the playground where we explored everything from walking people through new features and functionality, and that resulted in everything from lo-fi to hi-fi comps and iterations. We really needed to keep it within our product mindset, so we leaned heavily on our content designers to guide us along the way and really refine this user experience to make sure it felt like part of the product, that it wasn't some foreign experience introduced to our existing users. So what you're seeing here is a lot of iterations and comments, again, with various stakeholders in real time to kind of hone in and refine that process as we moved along. With that playground process, that mindset, we were able to really uncover a lot of the holes of things we may have been missing or variants that we didn't account for, again, with all the various stakeholders involved. Kind of being able to see some of these flows in real time and comment in real time allowed us to really refine that process and make sure we weren't missing anything to create a great user experience. In the end, after a lot of those iterations and a lot of those internal discussions, we arrived at a solution where we simply presented a simple modal to our existing users to let them know some of the highlights of a major release, as well as a pertinent or related task, in this case, selecting a theme. So just really simple, easy, clean, and minimal interference to our users. And that's all a result of a lot of that cross-collaboration that you saw.
The style of collaboration can be messy, and we're still getting used to it in a lot of ways. But having close collaboration with our cross-functional peers is a big improvement on our.
All right, I think I need to share my screen again now. And this was the kind of, I would say, like talking a talk by my colleagues, Ryan and Victoria. Victoria is also in the chat, so if you have some specific question about this part, she's going to be great and answer them. So things that I would like to highlight from this clip, especially for the part that maybe you weren't able to hear because I was typing furiously answer to all your questions and comments. So Ryan, Victoria, and Julian are in 3 different time zones, but somehow, because we found ourselves at home, we found ourselves a way to work and really share a space, which was virtual, it wasn't physical. We kind of, they managed to diverge and really diverging quickly and build on top of each other idea. And they were in charge of different part of the onboarding experience. And for the first time, this was one of the main pain points that I observed earlier. And for the first time, people that they weren't the lead were able to make suggestion early and in an effective way. And this also helped Ryan, Victoria, and Julian to be a team, to build and grow as a strong team that work and collaborate together. And one thing that I love is the idea of the playground with no limitation. No one goes alone anymore. And it's really something that, you're there and you're not afraid, because it's not that you're in a big design critique where there's always a bit, I can tell you because I'm presenting right now, every time that you present something, you have a bit of that feeling like, I hope that I'm doing fine. And, doing that kind of doing that in the same virtual space, it removes part of this friction. So it's really an ongoing conversation. But what about having an ongoing conversation with people that are specialists? Part of our redesign also involved taking on iconography. The previous iconography of Firefox was really more bold. It was used inconsistently around the product. And it really didn't reflect our value anymore. Our new design value was to have like a call and really light somehow experience. So we engage with an icon designer, with a specialist. And this icon designer is based in Barcelona. And as a specialist, somehow this may be going to contradict a bit what we just heard about the playground, but the specialists, they need their own space, they need their own corner in order to do their operation, which is really, really precise. And one of the person with the max expertise on iconography is based in Portland, Oregon, Barcelona, Portland, Oregon. Of course, I was able to play a bit like the mediator in the middle, but having this kind of conversation happening asynchronously as well help a lot. So it was really an ongoing conversation. And what I would like to highlight, this would be the time that if I was in person, I would probably use like a pointer. But like what I want to highlight is that they're not just like icons, they're also like bigger, not really exploration, but more like area where the specialist was able to explain the rationale about certain decision. So something that I learn and understand is that it's great that we're all in the same room now, but maybe it's better that like we're all in the same house. Sometimes it's better to give, especially people that have specific skills, their own room. Comments are great for a sync conversation, although the downside is that sometimes you have so many comments that you can get a bit lost. And if you're doing the work in one of the room, it's quite easily to move it into another place, right? It's pretty exciting. And this was just like another part that allow us to change our experience in Firefox. But really, before with Ryan, Jules, and Victoria, we saw 3 interaction designers like reworking together and find a way to co-own the experience, always by maybe having one person who was leading one effort, but like really co-own the experience, and that allow us to be more cohesive. But what about some functions of the UX team that they may be just for their, that may be sometimes maybe in a silos? What happened to them? Let's play the other video, please.
Hi, my name is Meridel Walkington, and I'm a content designer on the Firefox UX team. Today I'm going to be talking a bit about how we've used Figma to improve collaboration between content interaction, and visual design. So in case you haven't had a chance to work with a content designer or UX writer before, I just want to share a bit about our new but growing profession. So content designers use language as a design material. So we work with content, and content can be words, but it can also be other things like layout, hierarchy, iconography, and illustration. And so what kind of content we use and how it appears is something that we create in close collaboration with UX designers. So words are not really, created in a vacuum. It's not content first. It's not design first. Ideally, it's content and design together. But our tooling didn't always reflect that need and that reality. So if we take a metaphor, content design was kind of in coach house. We had our own space to create, but then when we needed to collaborate with our UX design colleagues, we had to leave the coach house and we had to take the path to the main design house. We had to knock on the door and we had to ask for help with the fancy coffee machine, and we brought our own coffee mugs. And so, as guests, we always felt a little bit like we were out of our element, or like we were intruders to that part of the design process. And so here's a map of what that collaboration looked like. And you can see that it was a bit complex. So you had content creating things in one set of tools, and then you have Emanuela over here, you have design creating content in another set of tools. And so all of the designs and the documentation had to be maintained across these different tools. So if copy changed, it needed to be reflected in the designs. If design changed, we needed to work through that copy in our own tools. And so this, was obviously a lot of overhead. And then in particular for stakeholders, external reviewers, and engineering, it could be challenging to figure out, what was the final source of truth for copy. And this meant that there was a greater risk for incorrect copy ending up in the product. And so all of this meant that certain parts of the process took more time. So what we're looking at here is something that we call on the content design team a wire slide. So this was me painstakingly recreating the Firefox new tab design in Google Slides. And I had to do that because I needed to move some content around. I needed to create some new content types. I needed to change some visuals. I needed to change copy. And these things, these are things that I couldn't do in the existing tools. So I had to, do them in this kind of one-off way in my own tools. And so obviously this process had a lot of issues. It was siloed, it was inefficient, it was difficult to maintain versions, it was difficult to know where the final source of truth was for copy. And then if you think back to that coaching metaphor, it was all just a bit sad and frustrating for content design. So fast forward a few months, we've started using Figma, and now content and design are co-creating experiences within the same design house. So this means that content design can update components, update copy. We don't need to ask for help. We can document multiple versions of copy, and we have a single source of truth, and we can do all of that within one place. And so here's what some of our artifacts look like now. And so these are co-created in Figma. And so on the left, you can see an example where Emanuela and I co-created what a new modal dialog would look like in Firefox. So we're able to figure out the content needs, the design needs, and document that together. In the middle is an example of a punch list. So this is a way, in Figma for content and design to keep track of, where we are in the process, in particular where we are with reviewing copy and finalizing copy. And then on the right is something that made Emanuela very happy, which was me being able to create multiple versions of modals depending on our message needs. So this worked well because basically at the front end of the process, Emanuela and I could together, co-create the kit of parts to serve all of our content needs. And then I was able to just run with that take what parts I needed from the kit, make adjustments to document all of the copy in the same place. So content design is no longer in the coach house. We have our own key. And of course, a tool is only as good as the processes and the people surrounding it and using it. And so in the Firefox UX team, we're still relatively new to Figma. We're still figuring it out. We're still figuring out how to leverage best practices, how to document, how to create templates. So it's by no means as clean as these slides make it out to be. But it's been great progress because, we're now together in the same design house. And that house has good bones, so we can build a collaborative future together.
So this was Meridel, one of my colleagues from the content design team. She's going to be at the booth later if you have some more specific questions about the content design. And I would like to address something because I know that we're mentioning that software tool a lot. And I said before that the tool doesn't shape your process. And I'm still reiterating this, the tool should enable you to do the things that you want to do, but it should not dictate the way that you work. So in our particular case, I think this clip and this sort of, again, another talk in a talk by Meridel kind of allow us to see that for us, we had this problem in the process that we were not feeling that content and design were working together since the beginning. And now we are able to do that. And I don't know how many of you, maybe let me know in the chat if you want, works closely with a content designer, but there is that moment where you really see people being enabled to do design and not being like a blocker in order to generate screens UI interface. That's, for me, is the real power of empowering people and be able to having design being a practice for many, right? So we have found just the most efficient communication and collaboration tool. And we like our feeling, for each other also grows stronger, and we're it's stronger as a team. And we can create these kits together and document interaction partner, updating code accordingly, all in one place. So those also allow us to solve problems that we were having in the past of, people just missing the right strings. All of this process and all of this conversation, many of them on Zoom, many of them on different time zones. And we realized that we designed and we wanted to design an experience that will bring delight in those quiet and forgettable moments, as my good friend Aaron said, like changing a theme, finding the tab that play audio, or, even opening a context menu. Those are the things that we put into the new Firefox. Those are the things that we put in our design process to make things looking different. All those conversation, and believe me, sometimes with a different time zone, early evenings, spending there back and forward with this 2-week sprint, it was great. But of course, it's also, I cannot deny that it was a really good process to go through, and we were super proud right now the work that we are able to achieve. We're really able to shape the browser and change it, make it different. And it was exciting the other day, see that now we are not the only browser with detachable tabs. We were able, I think, to find our fire. And what is our fire? Our fire are people. It starts with us. And as we hear from Victoria Ryan, it goes all the way to the existing Firefox user, welcoming new Firefox user in the product, because we're all in this together. There is really a human factor. Sometimes people ask me what makes Firefox different from other browsers. And of course, for some people it's privacy. For some people it's the fact that that's the browser that they've been using since they were a kid. But for me, it's really that the Firefox is made by people that they care. But in order to care, this year we needed to take care of our team in order to deliver a great product that care for everyone. This work for us was foundational. We wanted to ensure a coherent whole experience, singly where Firefox, he said it, and to reflect our mission to invite a new audience, not just for feature, not just for privacy, but for the experience. So thank you, everyone. We are hiring, as we mentioned before, and we are in the virtual booths. So yeah. Hi, Johannes.
Hi, and thank you for this really amazing talk. I just followed all the emojis coming up there. This was really something that got in there. And since you mentioned that you're hiring, there was already, again, this post to pin it there about your jobs. And there was also one question. So maybe we can just dive into some of the questions here. And for anything that we can't grab within the session, there is the booth from Firefox. You reach it from the reception. Just go there, and all the questions that can't be answered here, you can take there, and they will be answered there afterwards, right?
Yeah, indeed.
And there is one question. Maybe you can tell, since there was a question if Mozilla offers remote work positions. Are you in an office, or are you actually working remote by yourself?
So personally, well, right now we're all at home, but personally, I work in an office. We have an office in Berlin, which is also like a pretty nice office with the best coffee machine that I miss dearly. But some of my colleagues work remotely. So it really depends. We only do remote working in certain region, but we do remote working, yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes, there are remote job opportunities. So maybe you can also try and look for someone on your own. And this brings me, since you mentioned you're in different time zones, to one question which is not on the Q&A, but is something that I'm personally interested, because we had to really figure out a way in the organization team of the 24 hours of UX as well. How did you manage to find actual meeting times for different time zone meetings?
That's a really, really good question. I think that there is something that I kind of steal this definition from photography, like the golden hours, which are the hours where, for us, like Europe and the whole US are up. And those are great. Sometimes if you're working with, I don't know, people in Taipei, they're out, like the European mornings are also great because it's early afternoon for the time zone. But like going specifically to your questions, we are just being like really aware and try to figure out what are the right meetings. I'm going to be really transparent, maybe too transparent here. Sometimes, and I have a lot of colleagues here that can then tell me, like, you share too much. But like sometimes it can be hard, right? Because calendars can be busy altogether. So there is a lot of, I think, we really give people a lot of autonomy also to understand if that's a right meeting. If there are big meetings, we always record them. So you're able to rewatch them sometimes. Or like, for instance, I'm in Europe and I will say like 90% of the time, I will always speak, maybe having a one-to-one co-design session with one of our colleagues instead of attending a huge meeting that is being recorded, because we can both then find time, maybe in my morning or this other person in the evening, to rewatch it. So there is a lot. I think remote working and working different time zones gives you a lot of responsibility, but that's also the exciting part for me.
Sounds great. Maybe I should apply myself. There was another great question from Max, who asked about, do you at Firefox use Miro or Mural, this kind of whiteboard, so maybe a concept board as well? There are different ones. are you using them as well, or are you all into Figma at everything?
No, we're still using a lot Miro. We use Miro, especially like for this project in particular. Miro was crucial at the very beginning when, in order to identify all those things that were really working, in order to identify what to change, and now to have this take new fresh of the browser, we started with the inventory. And believe me, it was such a big Miro board with a certain point. It was really, really hard for us to open it. But also at the same time, as I say, like this was early stage of the process. Miro allow us to run a sort of, I don't really want to call it stand-up because it was kind of late for me in the evening, but like it kind of allows us to run this 50 minutes meeting and using it as a whiteboard to visualize how we were feeling, to visualize where we were in the curve. And that was a great exercise that Michelle Oishbush was moderating for the team.
Sounds great. And by the way, this brings me to a point. If anyone has anything to say or want to leave us a note, we also have an amazing Miro board for this event, and you can find it also from the registration. So go and get it there. I think we have time for one or two more questions. Let's see. There is so much awesome questions there.
For everyone who say like FigJam, yeah, I kind of still want to stick with Miro for now. Although, please, Miro, stop opening an overlay telling me that you have a new feature. I get it. You have a lot of feature. I just want your core feature. Thank you.
This brings me to a great question here on the Q&A. How do you all manage the comments in the design tools? Aaron says that he finds it overwhelming and hard to track sometimes. It also appears to me sometimes if you're really remote, that is, I don't know, something that's really, really a huge mess sometimes. How do you manage to do that?
Like everybody else, sometimes they are overwhelming, indeed. And there are moments where they are too hard. That's why we were really the best things that we were doing sometimes when maybe I was working on a file and one of my colleagues see me that I am in the file, instead of leaving a comment, we'll just start typing with that huge text size and maybe start a sort of like hacking our own way to have an interactive quick chat there. However, when you work with someone that is external, I will say the comments are fundamental because you need to give them, as I say, the time. They need the room. While with your colleagues, maybe you don't need to leave too many post-its. Like imagine if you think of a comments in a physical word as a post-it on your colleague monitor, you don't want to cover their monitor. They still need to see the monitor.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And before I ask one last question, I have to mention the booth again. So all the design-specific questions will be answered there. So go with them there. I leave them for now. And in about 2 minutes, there will start the next session. So you can join there or join the booth. So feel free to do how you like. So it's still ongoing. We're at hour 13, at the end of hour 13, and we have 24 hours in total. So it's amazing what's happening here. Now, one final question before we leave stage. It's something I think that you might answer about your personal opinion or personal engagement. Where do you personally usually get the inspirations for your playground ideas from?
I saw this question in the Q&A. I'm so happy that you asked it. Because for me, the inspiration is something that can really strike from different things. Really side note, I start running. You have no idea how much inspiration I found just when I do those 30, 45 minutes running. Or I try to read paper magazine because that maybe can give me an idea of how I can translate. Really, for me, inspiration and then a word that maybe sometimes is overload, but like creativity or looking for a different angles comes from looking for different things. If like us, like if you're a browser and the only place that you look at inspiration are your competitors, you're ended up, well, you're not. I don't know. I don't think you can find a lot of inspiration from your competitor. You can find interesting ideas, but not inspiration. Personal opinion, of course. Pretty curious to know what my colleagues think.
I think that was a great final question. So thanks for this question to Sarisa. And now just join the booth. We will finish the session about the question in the chat. Yes, this session is recorded and will be made available on the 24 Hours of UX YouTube channel. You find it also on our website or on the registration. Thank you for this amazing talk. Thanks also to Firefox for supporting the 24 Hours of UX, and a quick reminder to the job posts pinned here. So really glad to have you here. So
see you at the booth, because the booth is not recorded. So
this will not be recorded, no. And thanks also to Nico, who really managed to put everything in the backstage area and supporting as co-host. So see you in one of the next sessions. Eventually.